Captain Lisa Martinez stood on the bridge of the USS Valkyrie, watching the stars through the main viewport. The ship moved through space at a steady pace, its engines humming quietly in the background. She had been captain of this vessel for 3 years now, and every day brought new challenges in the vast emptiness of space. "Captain, we're approaching Kepler-7 station," announced Commander Jake Thompson from his position at the navigation console. He was a reliable officer who had served under Martinez since she took command. His voice carried the usual professional tone that marked all their interactions during duty hours. Martinez nodded and adjusted her uniform. Today was important because they were meeting with representatives from the Zorathi Empire, a species that had recently made contact with human space. The diplomatic mission was supposed to be routine, just another step in establishing trade relations between their civilizations. "Take us to Docking Bay 7, Martinez ordered, "and signal the station that we're ready for the diplomatic meeting." The USS Valkyrie was not the largest ship in the human fleet, but it was well equipped for its role as an exploration and diplomatic vessel. Its crew of 200 included some of the best officers in the Federation. Chief Engineer Amy Rodriguez kept the ship running smoothly, while Tactical Officer Kelly Bryant handled all security matters. Dr. Susan Walsh ran the medical bay with expert skill, treating everything from minor injuries to serious combat wounds. As the ship docked with Kepler-7, Martinez gathered her senior staff for a final briefing. The meeting room was small but functional, with a large table surrounded by comfortable chairs. The walls displayed information about the Zorathi Empire, including images of their homeworld and basic cultural notes. "Remember, this is our first formal meeting with the Zorathi," Martinez began. "Intelligence reports suggest they're a militaristic society with strict social hierarchies. We need to be respectful but firm in our negotiations." Dr. Walsh raised her hand. "Captain, I've reviewed the medical data on their species. They're physically stronger than humans, but seem to have some interesting weaknesses. Their immune system is particularly sensitive to certain compounds." "Good to know," Martinez replied. "Kelly, what's our security situation?" "Tactical Officer." Brian checked her tablet. "Station security is handling most of the arrangements. The Zorathi have requested minimal human presence during the initial meetings. They seem nervous about our weapons technology." Commander Thompson leaned forward. "That's understandable. Our reputation in this sector has grown significantly since the Centauri conflicts. Most species know not to underestimate human military capabilities." Martinez stood up. "All right, let's head to the meeting. Amy, keep the ship ready for departure. We might need to leave quickly if things don't go well." The group made their way through the ship's corridors to the airlock. The USS Valkyrie was connected to Kepler-7 through a flexible tube that allowed easy movement between the two structures. As they walked, Martinez felt the familiar weight of responsibility on her shoulders. Every decision she made could affect relations between two entire civilizations. Kepler-7 was a neutral trading station that served as a meeting point for different species. The corridors were wider than those on human ships, designed to accommodate various alien physiologies. The air had a slightly different smell, filtered through systems that could support multiple atmospheric requirements. They reached the main conference room where the Zorathi delegation was waiting. Ambassador Vexstar stood at the head of a long table, surrounded by 6 other Zorathi officials. They were tall creatures with gray skin and sharp features, wearing elaborate uniforms that seemed to indicate military rank. "Welcome to Kepler-7, Vexstar said in accented but clear English. "I am Ambassador Vexstar of the Zorathi Empire. We are pleased to meet with representatives of the Human Federation." Martinez stepped forward. "I'm Captain Lisa Martinez of the USS Valkyrie. These are my senior officers. We're honored to represent humanity in these negotiations." Vexstar's expression changed slightly when he realized Martinez was the leader of the human delegation. His eyes narrowed, and he looked at Commander Thompson as if expecting him to correct some mistake. "You are the captain?" Vexstar asked, his voice carrying a tone of disbelief. "But you are female." "Yes, I am," Martinez replied calmly. "Is that a problem?" The other Zorethi officials began whispering among themselves in their own language. Martinez could see confusion and something that looked like disgust on their faces. She had encountered species with different cultural attitudes before, but this reaction seemed particularly intense. In Zorethi society, females do not hold positions of authority, Vextar explained. They are meant for breeding and support roles. Surely your superiors would not send a female to conduct serious negotiations. Commander Thompson stepped forward. Ambassador Captain Martinez is one of the most respected officers in our fleet. She has full authority to negotiate on behalf of the Human Federation. Vextar laughed, a harsh sound that echoed through the conference room. This is amusing. Your species sends breeding stock to conduct diplomacy. How can we take such creatures? Seriously? Martinez felt anger building inside her chest, but she kept her voice steady. Ambassador, I suggest we focus on the matters at hand. Personal opinions about gender roles shouldn't interfere with our diplomatic mission. Personal opinions? Vextar's voice rose. These are fundamental truths about the natural order. Females are weak, emotional, and unsuited for leadership. The fact that humans allow this abomination shows how primitive your civilization truly is, Dr. Walsh stepped forward. Ambassador, with respect, human females have served in leadership roles for centuries. Our society has evolved beyond such primitive thinking. Primitive? Vextar's face darkened. You call the natural order primitive? This female speaks to me as if she were an equal. In Zorethi space, such behavior would be punished severely. The tension in the room was rising rapidly. Martinez could see her officers preparing for trouble, their hands moving closer to their weapons. The Zorethi officials were also becoming agitated, their body language suggesting they were ready for confrontation. I think we need to take a break, Martinez suggested. Perhaps we can continue this discussion when everyone has had time to consider the situation. No, Vextar said firmly. This meeting is over. We cannot negotiate with a species that allows females to pretend they are warriors and leaders. It is an insult to everything we believe. He gestured to his soldiers, who moved to flank the human delegation. These females will come with us. They need to learn proper respect for their betters. That's not going to happen, Commander Thompson said, his hand moving to his sidearm. You will not resist, Vextar declared. We are taking these specimens back to our territory for proper education. They will serve as examples of what happens when the natural order is violated. The Zorethi soldiers moved forward, but they had underestimated human reflexes. Kelly Bryant drew her weapon and fired a warning shot into the ceiling. The sound echoed through the conference room, causing everyone to freeze. Nobody moves, Bryant announced. This is a diplomatic meeting, not a kidnapping operation. But the Zorethi were already moving. More soldiers entered the room from side passages surrounding the human delegation. In the confusion that followed, Martinez saw Dr. Walsh being grabbed by two Zorethi soldiers. The doctor fought back, but she was outnumbered. Let her go. Martinez shouted, drawing her own weapon. The battle was brief but intense. The humans were skilled fighters, but the Zorethi had numbers and preparation on their side. In the end, 3 human officers were taken prisoner: Dr. Susan Walsh, Communications Officer Tracy Adams, and Navigator Lieutenant Karen White. As the Zorethi retreated with their captives, Ambassador Vextar paused at the door. Consider this a lesson, Captain. Your females belong to us now. They will learn their proper place in the universe. Martinez watched helplessly as her officers were dragged away. The diplomatic mission had become a disaster, and 3 of her people were now prisoners of a hostile alien empire. As she stood in the damaged conference room, she knew that this incident would have consequences far beyond what anyone could imagine. The Zorethi had made a terrible mistake. They had attacked human females, not understanding that such an action would unite every human faction in the galaxy. The response would be swift, decisive, and absolutely devastating, but that was still to come. For now, Martinez could only watch as her officers disappeared into Zorethi space, knowing that a war was about to begin. The news spread through human space like wildfire. Within hours of the incident at Kepler-7, every major human colony, station, and military outpost knew what had happened. The Zorthi Empire had kidnapped 3 human female officers during what was supposed to be a peaceful diplomatic meeting. Admiral Patricia Hayes sat in her command center on Luna Station, watching the reports flood in from across the galaxy. Her staff moved with urgent purpose around the massive holographic display that showed the positions of every human fleet in known space. The Admiral was a veteran of 3 major conflicts, and she had never seen such a unified response to any single incident. "Admiral, we're receiving messages from every sector commander," reported Lieutenant Colonel Maria Santos, her chief of staff. "They're all requesting permission to mobilize their forces." Hayes nodded grimly. She had expected this reaction. The Zorathi had made a fundamental error in their understanding of human society. They saw the kidnapping of female officers as taking prisoners of war, but humans saw it as an attack on their entire civilization. "Get me a direct line to the Mars Defense Force," Hayes ordered, "and contact the Outer Rim territories. I want to know how many ships they can spare for a rescue operation." The response was immediate and overwhelming. General Robert Davis from Mars called within minutes, his face appearing on the main communication screen. Behind him, Hayes could see the busy activity of a military command center preparing for war. "Patricia, the Mars colonies are with you completely," Davis announced. "We can provide 12 heavy cruisers and support vessels. My people are already loading supplies and ammunition." "Thank you, Robert," Hayes replied. "What about ground forces?" "We're sending 2 full Marine divisions under Colonel Lisa Parker. She's one of our best combat commanders, and she has experience fighting in hostile alien environments." Similar calls came in from across human space. The Jupiter mining colonies offered their security forces and mining ships that could be converted for military use. The asteroid belt stations provided their patrol vessels and crews who knew how to fight in space. Even the distant colonies near the galactic rim sent word that they were mobilizing whatever forces they could spare, but the most significant response came from Commander Beth Sullivan, leader of the Special Operations Division. Her unit was legendary among human military forces, composed entirely of volunteers who had proven themselves in the most dangerous missions. When she requested permission to lead the rescue operation personally, Hayes granted it without hesitation. "Commander Sullivan, you have full authority to organize this mission," Hayes told her during their private communication. "What do you need?" "Give me the best ships you can spare, and let me choose my team," Sullivan replied. "The Zorathi think they're dealing with weak females. They're about to learn how wrong they are." Sullivan's team began assembling immediately. She chose Major Claire Johnson, an expert in psychological warfare who had spent years studying alien cultures. Johnson's specialty was finding weaknesses in enemy thinking and exploiting them for maximum effect. If anyone could understand how to hurt the Zorathi where it mattered most, it was her. Captain Nina Parker joined the team as tactical coordinator. Her reputation for strategic brilliance was matched only by her ruthlessness in combat. She had planned successful operations against 3 different alien species, always achieving victory with minimal human casualties. Lieutenant Colonel Maria Santos volunteered to lead the ground assault forces. She was a veteran of the Titan Wars, where human forces had faced overwhelming odds against a technologically superior enemy. Her experience in urban combat and siege warfare made her the perfect choice for what was expected to be a difficult planetary assault. While the military forces prepared for war, intelligence operatives worked to gather information about the Zorathi Empire. What they discovered was both encouraging and disturbing. The Zorathi were indeed a militaristic society, but their rigid social structure was also their greatest weakness. "They literally cannot comprehend the idea of females in combat roles," reported Intelligence Officer Amanda Brooks during the planning session. "Their entire military doctrine assumes that enemies will follow the same gender restrictions they do." Hayes studied the intelligence reports carefully. The Zorathi Empire controlled 15 star systems and had a population of over 2 billion. Their military was well-equipped and experienced, but it was also predictable. They had never faced an enemy that used female soldiers in combat roles. What about their treatment of prisoners? Hayes asked. Brooks's expression darkened. That's where it gets worse. They don't recognize females as legitimate military personnel. Our officers are being held as curiosities rather than prisoners of war. The Zorethi are treating them as specimens to be studied and eventually used for breeding experiments. The room fell silent as the implications sank in. This was not just a rescue mission anymore. It was a matter of human dignity and the principles that their entire civilization was built upon. How long do we have? Hayes asked. Based on their past behavior with other species, probably weeks rather than days, Brooks replied. The Zorethi like to take their time with what they consider interesting subjects. Hayes stood up and addressed the assembled commanders. Ladies and gentlemen, we are not just rescuing 3 officers. We are sending a message to every species in the galaxy about what happens when someone attacks human civilians. The Zorethi Empire has declared war on human values, and we are going to respond with everything we have. The planning session continued for hours as details were worked out. The rescue fleet would consist of the flagship USS Retribution under Admiral Hayes, supported by carriers, destroyers, and stealth ships. The ground forces would be led by experienced commanders who understood both human tactics and alien psychology, but the most important element of the operation was the psychological warfare campaign that Major Johnson was developing. She had studied the Zorethi culture extensively and identified their greatest fear, the idea that their rigid social order might be wrong. We're going to broadcast the service records of every female officer in the human military, Johnson explained to the command staff. We'll show them exactly what these weak females are capable of. By the time we arrive at their homeworld, they'll be questioning everything they believe about gender and warfare. The broadcast began immediately. Across Zorethi space, communication networks were flooded with information about human female warriors. The Zorethi learned that Dr. Susan Walsh, whom they had dismissed as a weak medical officer, was actually a combat veteran with more kills than most of their elite soldiers. They discovered that human females had led successful military campaigns against species far more advanced than the Zorethi. The broadcasts included detailed battle footage showing female commanders directing complex operations with deadly precision. Most disturbing of all for the Zorethi was the realization that human society had evolved beyond their primitive understanding of gender roles. The humans were not just sending female soldiers to rescue their captured officers. They were sending them because those females were the best warriors humanity had to offer. As the human fleet prepared to launch, messages of support continued to pour in from across the galaxy. Even some alien species that had previously been neutral began offering assistance. The Zorethi Empire had made enemies of more than just humanity. Admiral Hayes stood on the bridge of the USS Retribution as the fleet prepared to depart. Around her, the best officers in the human military worked with calm efficiency. Many of them were women who had proven themselves in combat time and again. All ships report ready for departure, announced Captain Kelly Bryant, who had been promoted to serve as Hayes's tactical officer after the incident at Kepler 7, set course for Zorethi space. Hayes ordered, "It's time to teach them about the real meaning of equality." The human fleet moved out into the darkness of space, carrying with it the hopes and anger of an entire civilization. The Zorethi Empire had awakened something they did not understand, and the consequences would reshape the balance of power in the galaxy forever. The human fleet moved through space like a dark storm cloud, heading straight for Zorethi territory. Admiral Patricia Hayes stood on the bridge of the USS Retribution, watching the tactical display as dozens of ships maintained perfect formation around her flagship. The rescue mission had grown into something much larger than anyone had originally planned. "Admiral, we're receiving reports from our advanced scouts," announced Captain Kelly Bryant from her position at the tactical station. "The Zorethi have reinforced their border systems. They know we're coming." Hayes nodded. She had expected this response. The Zorthi Empire might be primitive in their social thinking, but they were not stupid about military matters. They understood that kidnapping human officers would bring retaliation. What about our psychological warfare campaign? Hayes asked. Major Claire Johnson looked up from her communication console. The broadcasts are having exactly the effect we hoped for. Intelligence intercepts show massive confusion in Zorthi military ranks. Their commanders are questioning orders from female officers, and some units are refusing to follow standard protocols. The psychological campaign had been working perfectly. For weeks, Major Johnson had been flooding Zorthi communication networks with detailed information about human female warriors. The Zorthi military was learning that their assumptions about gender and warfare were completely wrong. "Show me the latest intercept," Hayes ordered. Johnson activated the main display screen. The translation software converted the alien language into readable text, showing a conversation between two Zorthi commanders. The discussion revealed growing panic in their ranks as they realized the humans were sending their best fighters to rescue the captured officers. They're particularly disturbed by the combat record of Dr. Susan Walsh, Johnson reported. The fact that a medical officer has more confirmed kills than most of their elite soldiers is causing serious morale problems. Hayes smiled grimly. The Zorthi had expected to face weak opponents, but they were learning that human females were among the most dangerous warriors in the galaxy. The psychological pressure was already weakening their military structure before the first battle had even begun. "Admiral, we're approaching the Nexus Gate," reported Commander Jake Thompson from the navigation station. "This is the first major checkpoint in Zorthi space." The Nexus Gate was a strategic choke point that controlled access to the inner systems of the Zorthi Empire. It was heavily fortified with weapons platforms, patrol ships, and defensive stations. Any fleet wanting to reach the Zorthi homeworld would have to fight through this barrier. "Signal the fleet to prepare for combat," Hayes ordered. "Commander Sullivan, are your forces ready?" Commander Beth Sullivan's voice came through the communication system from her command ship. "Special operations teams are in position. We're ready to begin the assault." The battle began exactly as planned. The Zorthi defenders had positioned themselves according to their traditional military doctrine, expecting the humans to follow conventional attack patterns. Instead, they found themselves facing tactics they had never seen before. Commander Sullivan led the first wave of attackers, using stealth ships and advanced electronic warfare to disable the Zorthi sensor networks. Her teams moved with precision and deadly efficiency, striking at weak points in the enemy defenses. "Target their command structure first," Sullivan ordered over the tactical network. "Take out their ability to coordinate responses." The Zorthi fleet tried to respond, but their commanders were struggling with the reality of facing female warriors in combat. Many of their tactical decisions were based on assumptions about human behavior that proved to be completely wrong. Captain Nina Parker coordinated the main assault from her position aboard the USS Retribution. Her tactical brilliance showed as she directed multiple attack groups with perfect timing. The Zorthi defenders found themselves overwhelmed by coordinated strikes that hit them from unexpected angles. "Enemy formation is breaking apart," reported Captain Bryant. "Their left flank is collapsing." The Zorthi had never faced enemies who used female commanders in combat situations. Their military training had not prepared them for opponents who thought differently about warfare and strategy. The result was a devastating defeat that left their defensive positions in ruins. "Nexus Gate is secured," announced Commander Sullivan. "We're detecting scattered resistance, but the main defensive line has been eliminated." The victory was complete, but Hayes knew this was only the beginning. The real challenge would come when they reached the Zorthi homeworld, where the 3 captured officers were being held prisoner. Meanwhile, on the Zorthi homeworld, Dr. Susan Walsh was working on her own plans for resistance. The prison facility where she and her fellow officers were being held was designed to contain what the Zorthi considered weak female specimens. They had no idea they were holding trained military personnel. "Karen, can you access their computer systems?" Walsh asked quietly during their daily exercise period. Lieutenant Karen White nodded. I've been working on it since we arrived. Their security protocols assume prisoners are helpless. They never expected anyone to fight back. Tracy Adams, a communications officer, had been studying the guard routines and facility layout. I've identified several weak points in their security system. If we can create a distraction, we might be able to break out during shift changes. Walsh smiled. The Zorethi had made another fundamental error. They believed that capturing human females meant they had taken helpless prisoners. Instead, they had brought trained soldiers inside their most secure facility. We need to coordinate with the rescue fleet, Walsh said. If we can create chaos from the inside when they arrive, it will make their job much easier. The three officers began preparing for their escape attempt. Walsh used her medical knowledge to create improvised weapons from materials available in the prison. White worked on hacking the facility's computer systems to disable security measures. Adams planned their route to the communications center where they could contact the human fleet back in space. The human fleet was approaching the Zorethi homeworld. Intelligence reports showed massive military preparations on the planet's surface. The Zorathi were concentrating their remaining forces for a final desperate defense. Admiral, we're detecting unusual activity in the prisoner facility, reported the intelligence officer. There are signs of internal disruption. Hayes studied the sensor readings. Our people are fighting back. That's exactly what I expected them to do. The psychological warfare campaign had reached its peak effectiveness. Zorethi military units were reporting widespread confusion and loss of morale. Some commanders were refusing to follow orders from their superiors, claiming they could no longer trust their judgment about human capabilities. The enemy fleet is moving into defensive positions around their homeworld, reported Captain Bryant. They're using everything they have left? Hayes looked at the tactical display showing the positions of both fleets. The Zorethi had numerical advantage, but their forces were demoralized and confused. The psychological pressure had done its job perfectly. All units, prepare for final assault, Hayes announced to the fleet. Commander Sullivan, begin ground operations as soon as we establish orbital superiority. The battle for the Zorethi homeworld was about to begin. The human fleet moved into attack formation, ready to demonstrate once and for all that attacking human females was the biggest mistake any species could make. As the ships moved toward combat, Hayes thought about the three officers waiting for rescue on the planet below. They had endured captivity with courage and determination, never giving up hope that their fellow humans would come for them. The Zorethi Empire was about to learn that human females were not victims to be taken prisoner. They were warriors who would fight to the end. Whether they were leading fleets in space or planning escapes from alien prisons, the final battle was beginning, and the outcome would change the balance of power in the galaxy forever. The human fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the Zorethi home system like avenging angels. Admiral Patricia Hayes watched the tactical display as dozens of ships took their positions around her flagship. The enemy homeworld hung before them like a brown and green marble, surrounded by defensive platforms and patrol ships. Admiral, we're detecting massive energy signatures from the planet's surface, reported Captain Kelly Bryant. They're powering up planetary defense systems. Hayes nodded grimly. The Zorathi were making their final stand here, using everything they had left to protect their homeworld. But she knew that desperation would not be enough to stop the human. Assault, begin orbital bombardment of military targets, Hayes ordered. Commander Sullivan, are your ground forces ready? Commander Beth Sullivan's voice came through the communication system from her assault ship. Ground teams are prepared for immediate deployment. We're just waiting for the signal. The space battle began with devastating efficiency. The human fleet had learned from their victory at the Nexus Gate, using the same psychological tactics that had worked so well before. The Zorethi commanders found themselves facing opponents who fought in ways they could not understand or predict. Captain Nina Parker coordinated the orbital assault with deadly precision. Her tactical brilliance showed as she directed multiple attack groups against the enemy defenses. The Zorthi fleet tried to respond, but their morale was already broken from weeks of psychological warfare. "Enemy formation is fragmenting," reported the tactical officer. "They're not following standard defensive protocols." The reason was clear to everyone who had studied the intelligence reports. The Zorthi military structure was collapsing under the weight of their own rigid thinking. Their commanders could not adapt to fighting enemies who used female leaders in combat situations down on the planet's surface. The 3 captured human officers were putting their own escape plan into action. Dr. Susan Walsh had spent days preparing improvised weapons from medical supplies, while Lieutenant Karen White had been working on hacking the prison facility's computer systems. "The security grid is down," White whispered to her fellow prisoners. "I've disabled the alarm systems for the next 10 minutes. Tracy Adams checked the corridor outside their cell. "Guards are changing shifts now. This is our chance." The 3 officers moved with quiet efficiency through the prison facility. They had memorized the layout during their captivity, identifying weak points in the security system. The Zorathi had designed the prison to hold what they considered helpless female specimens. Not trained military personnel, Walsh led them toward the communication center, using her medical knowledge to disable guards with precise pressure point attacks. White worked on opening locked doors by bypassing electronic security measures. Adams coordinated their movements, ensuring they avoided patrols and surveillance systems. "There," Adams pointed to a heavy door marked with Zorthi symbols. "That's the main communication center." They entered the facility to find it filled with advanced alien technology. White immediately began working on the communication systems, her fingers flying over the control panels as she tried to establish contact with the human fleet. "I'm getting something," she announced. "It's an open channel to the USS Retribution." Admiral Hayes's voice came through the speakers, clear and strong. "This is Admiral Hayes. Identify yourself." "Admiral, this is Lieutenant Karen White. Dr. Walsh, Communications Officer Adams, and I have escaped from the prison facility. We're in their main communication center." Hayes felt a surge of pride at hearing her officers' voices. "Excellent work. What's your situation?" "We've disabled internal security systems and created significant disruption in their command structure," Walsh reported. "The facility is in chaos, and we're ready to coordinate with your ground assault." "Perfect timing," Hayes replied. "Commander, Sullivan is beginning planetary assault operations now." The ground assault began exactly as planned. Commander Sullivan led her Special Forces units in a coordinated attack on key military installations across the planet. The Zorthi defenders found themselves facing the most elite human soldiers, many of whom were women who had proven themselves in countless battles. Lieutenant Colonel Maria Santos commanded the main assault force as they fought their way through the capital city. Her experience in urban warfare showed as she directed her troops with deadly efficiency. The Zorthi soldiers could not understand how female commanders could be so effective in combat situations. "Target their command bunkers first," Santos ordered over the tactical network. "We need to eliminate their ability to coordinate responses." The Zorthi military had concentrated their forces around the prison facility, believing it would be the main target of the human assault. Instead, they found themselves under attack from multiple directions as human forces struck at communication centers, weapons depots, and command posts. Major Claire Johnson's psychological warfare campaign reached its peak effectiveness during the ground battle. Zorthi units were receiving conflicting orders from their commanders, many of whom were paralyzed by the realization that their assumptions about warfare were completely wrong. "Enemy morale is collapsing," Johnson reported from her position in the command center. "We're intercepting communications, showing complete breakdown of their command structure." The battle for the capital city became a masterclass in combined arms warfare. Human forces moved with precision and coordination, using tactics that the Zorthi had never encountered before. The enemy defenders found themselves outmaneuvered at every turn. Captain Lisa Martinez had joined the ground assault, determined to personally rescue her captured officers. She led a specialized team toward the prison facility, fighting through streets filled with confused and demoralized Zorathi soldiers. "Prison facility is in sight," Martinez reported. "We're detecting friendly signals from inside the building." The convergence of external assault and internal sabotage created total chaos in the Zorathi ranks. Their military structure, already weakened by psychological warfare, collapsed completely under the coordinated human attack. Inside the communication center, the 3 escaped officers were providing vital intelligence to the assault forces. White had accessed the facility's computer systems and was feeding information about enemy positions and movements to the human commanders. "They're moving reinforcements towards Sector 7, White reported. "But their communication network is failing." Walsh had found the prison facility's medical bay and was using her knowledge to create additional disruption. She released other prisoners and provided medical treatment to injured humans while sabotaging Zorathi. Equipment. Adams was coordinating with the rescue teams, guiding them through the facility's complex layout. Her knowledge of the building's structure was proving invaluable to the assault forces. The climax of the battle came when Ambassador Vextar, the Zorathi leader who had started this conflict, decided to face Captain Martinez in single combat. He still believed that human females were weak opponents who could be defeated through physical strength alone. "You dare challenge me, breeding stock?" Vextar snarled as he confronted Martinez in the prison facility's main corridor. Martinez drew her weapon calmly. "I'm here to rescue my officers and teach you about the real meaning of equality." The fight was broadcast across the galaxy through the communication systems that White had accessed. Species throughout known space watched as the human captain systematically defeated the Zorathi ambassador, demonstrating the superior training and tactical thinking that made human warriors so effective. Vextar's defeat became a symbol of the Zorathi Empire's fundamental misunderstanding of human society. The battle ended with the complete collapse of their military resistance and the successful rescue of all 3 captured officers. As the dust settled over the Zorathi homeworld, Admiral Hayes surveyed the results of the operation. The mission had accomplished much more than a simple rescue. It had demonstrated to the entire galaxy that attacking human females was not just an act of war, but a death sentence for any civilization foolish enough to try it. The Zorathi Empire's military infrastructure lay in ruins, their fleet was destroyed, and their rigid social structure had collapsed under the weight of its own contradictions. The message was clear to every species in the galaxy. Humans would not tolerate any form of discrimination or attack on their people. Regardless of gender, the 3 rescued officers stood with their admiral as they watched the surrender of the remaining Zorathi forces. They had survived captivity with courage and determination, never losing hope that their fellow humans would come for them. Their rescue had become a defining moment in galactic history, establishing new rules that would govern interspecies relations for generations to come. The aftermath of the Zorathi War sent shockwaves across the entire galaxy. Within days of the human victory, representatives from dozens of alien species were sending urgent messages to Earth, requesting meetings and offering apologies for any past misunderstandings. The speed and effectiveness of the human response had fundamentally changed how other civilizations viewed Earth's military capabilities. Admiral Patricia Hayes stood in the rebuilt conference room on Kepler 7 station, the same place where this conflict had begun. But now the room was filled with alien ambassadors who treated her with a respect that bordered on fear. The casual dismissal and arrogance that had marked previous diplomatic meetings were gone, replaced by careful attention to every word she spoke. "The Human Federation appreciates your concerns about future relations," Hayes addressed the assembled diplomats. "However, we want to make our position absolutely clear. Any attack on human civilians, particularly our female personnel, will be met with immediate and overwhelming force." Ambassador Krell of the Vegan Confederacy shifted nervously in his seat. "Admiral, we assure you that our species has always respected human autonomy. We have no intention of repeating the Zorathi's mistakes." "Good," Hayes replied simply. because as you have seen, we consider such attacks to be acts of war against our entire civilization. The message was unmistakable. The human response to the Zorthi Empire had been so devastating that no other species wanted to risk similar consequences. The complete destruction of Zorthi military power served as a warning to every government in known space. Dr. Susan Walsh, now wearing the rank insignia of a fleet admiral, entered the conference room accompanied by Lieutenant Corinne White and Communications Officer Tracy Adams. The three officers had become heroes throughout human space, their survival and resistance during captivity inspiring countless others. Admiral Walsh will be heading our new Diplomatic Protection Division, Hayes announced to the alien representatives. Her experience with hostile species makes her uniquely qualified to ensure the safety of human personnel during future negotiations. The sight of the three rescued officers caused visible discomfort among some of the alien diplomats. They had heard the stories of how these supposedly weak human females had escaped from a maximum security prison and coordinated with the rescue forces. The reality of human female capabilities was impossible to ignore. Ambassador Helen Carter, Earth's chief diplomat, took her place at the head of the conference table. She had noticed significant changes in how alien species treated human representatives since the Zorathi incident. Negotiations that once took months now concluded in days, and demands that had previously been dismissed were suddenly given serious consideration. "We're here today to establish new protocols for interspecies relations," Carter announced. The events of the past weeks have shown that misunderstandings about human society can have serious consequences. The new protocols were straightforward but firm. Any species wishing to maintain diplomatic relations with humanity would be required to acknowledge the equal status of human females in all official dealings. Discrimination based on gender would be considered grounds for immediate termination of treaties and trade agreements. "These are not negotiable points," Carter explained. "Human society has evolved beyond primitive gender hierarchies, and we expect our allies to respect that evolution." The alien representatives agreed quickly and completely. None of them wanted to risk the kind of response that had destroyed the Zorathi Empire. The human military had demonstrated capabilities that far exceeded what most species had believed possible. Commander Beth Sullivan was promoted to general and given command of the new Rapid Response Division. Her unit would be responsible for dealing with any future threats to human civilians. The Special Operations Forces under her command had proven so effective during the Zorathi War that several alien species had requested training exchanges to learn human tactical methods. "Our mission is simple," Sullivan explained to her expanded command staff. "We exist to ensure that no human civilian ever suffers what our people endured at Zorathi hands. Any species that threatens our people will face immediate consequences." The Rapid Response Division was equipped with the most advanced ships and weapons in the human arsenal. Its personnel were drawn from every branch of the military, with particular emphasis on female officers who had proven themselves in combat situations. The message to potential enemies was clear. Attacking human females meant facing the best warriors humanity had to offer. Captain Lisa Martinez received promotion to admiral and was given command of the new flagship USS Equality. The ship was designed specifically to serve as a mobile command center for operations defending human civilians. Its crew was deliberately chosen to represent the diversity and capabilities of human society. "This ship represents everything we stand for," Martinez told her officers during the commissioning ceremony. "We are here to protect human values and ensure that no species in the galaxy forgets the lessons of the Zorathi War." The USS Equality became a symbol of human power and determination. Its presence in any star system served as a reminder of what happened to those who underestimated human capabilities. The ship's crew, composed equally of male and female officers, demonstrated the strength that came from true equality. The Galactic Council, which had previously treated human concerns with polite dismissal, now gave Earth's representatives positions of significant authority. Ambassador Carter found herself appointed to chair several important committees, while Admiral Hayes was invited to join the Military Advisory Board. The Council finally understands that humanity cannot be ignored, Carter reported during a meeting with Earth's leadership. Our voice carries weight now because they know we have the power to back up our words. The change in galactic politics was dramatic and permanent. Species that had once viewed humans as insignificant newcomers now sought their alliance and approval. The demonstration of human military effectiveness had created a new balance of power that favored Earth's interests. The 3 rescued officers continued to serve with distinction in their new roles. Dr. Walsh revolutionized diplomatic security protocols, using her experience as a prisoner to identify potential threats before they could develop. Lieutenant White became head of intelligence operations, her skills in electronic warfare and computer systems proving invaluable for protecting human interests. Tracy Adams led the Diplomatic Protection Division's field operations, ensuring that human representatives could conduct their business without fear of attack or intimidation. Her knowledge of alien psychology and communication systems made her extremely effective at preventing incidents before they could escalate. The final establishment of the new galactic order came with the formal adoption of what became known as the Martinez Doctrine. This military policy stated clearly that any attack on human civilians would be met with overwhelming force, regardless of the attacker's size or power. Rule number 1 in the galaxy is simple, Admiral Martinez announced during the doctrine's official presentation. Don't cross Earth's females. The Zorathi Empire learned this lesson the hard way, and they paid in blood. The ceremony was attended by representatives from every major species in known space. They watched as human military leaders outlined the principles that would guide future interactions between Earth and alien civilizations. Rule number 2, Martinez continued with a slight smile, is that there is no rule number 2. The first rule covers everything you need to know about dealing with humanity. The audience of alien diplomats nodded their understanding. The message was perfectly clear, and none of them had any intention of testing its limits. Years later, historians would mark the HFY War as the turning point when humanity claimed its place among the galaxy's major powers. The conflict had started with a simple diplomatic meeting and 3 kidnapped officers, but it ended with the establishment of principles that would govern interspecies relations for generations. The final monument to the war was erected on Kepler 7 station, in the exact spot where the original confrontation had taken place. The inscription was simple but powerful, in memory of those who learned too late that attacking human females is a fatal mistake. Visitors from across the galaxy would come to read those words and remember the lesson they represented. The Zorathi Empire was gone, destroyed by their own ignorance and prejudice, but their fate served as a permanent warning to anyone who might consider similar actions. The galaxy had learned to respect humanity, not through conquest or intimidation, but through the simple demonstration that human values were worth fighting for. The war had ended, but its legacy would shape the future of interstellar civilization forever.